Videogame Memories.
Number 8 by Nathan Lowell.
Brought to you by writingsofdan.blogspot.com.
Hey everybody, this is Dan. I hope you're enjoying the Videogame Memories. This podcast will be a bit different, as I am rebroadcasting one of Nathan's podcasts called Talking on My Morning Walk. Every morning he goes for a walk and records himself whatever he's thinking about into his BlackBerry. And he was kind enough to share some of his video game memories as he went on his walk this morning. So, I will be rebroadcasting that for you right now. Enjoy.
Good morning. It's August 9th, 5:55 a.m. I'm running late. I need to be home in 5 minutes and I'm not going to make it. Well, my daughter will still have plenty of time to get ready for band. And after yesterday, I suspect she's a bit tired. It was a long, hot day in the sun for her yesterday. It's a lovely morning. Mostly clear, with some clouds off in the distance. Nothing straight overhead. Blue sky. What I'm thinking about today is video games. I think it's Dan the Art Man was asking for video game memories. And he was doing this a while ago, and I've been thinking about it. And no, I couldn't really. It's like, what do I remember about video games? And then for some reason this morning, as I was starting to walk, I started thinking about starting in video games. Trying to remember if I could think of what the first video game was. Now, to place this properly, you have to understand that I grew up with pinball machines. I'm that old. The big draw was 5 steel balls, and the clanking, jingling, counting, bong, 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 the flippers. I never was any good at it. I never had enough money to actually get good. I never could practice enough to become proficient. So they still fascinated me. Good morning. The mechanics of them, the sound of them, the feel of them. If you've never played a pinball machine, and I suspect that there are people who are listening to this who never have, there is a tactile quality, a haptic feedback, although it's not technically haptic. When the ball gets between two bumpers and ratchets back and forth, or when you put a little English on the machine with your hip, and the ball slams into the side. You feel it. You feel it in your fingertips. You feel it in the palms of your hands. There's a physical connection there. But I did play video games. I'm trying to remember if the first video game I ever played was Asteroids. It might have been Pong. I might have actually played Pong. Was Pong a video game? Was it an arcade game that stood up in its own console? I know I had Pong on the first game system I ever bought, which was an Atari. But I was 20-something, 8 or 9. I actually owned a computer before I owned a video game system. So yeah, I did play Pong. The, the one I remember was a side scroller with a guy running over alligators. I'm trying to remember the name of it. Something Harry. Can't remember now. It was a 2-syllable blank Harry. Can't remember it. It's an old game. 25 years or more since I remember playing it. Oh, yeah, at least 25 years. But I remember playing that game. I remember wasting a lot of time on Tetris too, but perhaps we shouldn't go there. Is Tetris considered a video game? I don't know. But I do remember those games. Tank Battle? Asteroids was the one that comes to mind most readily. Asteroid and Missile Command were the two that probably took up most of my video game play back in the day. I was never, and I will say this again, I was never any good at those old video games, particularly the console ones, but the special controller ones, I was never any good. I was only marginally better at computer-based first-person shooters. And truthfully, I actually play a lot more games on my computer than I ever did on any kind of console unit. Now we do have a console for the kids. We've actually had a couple different ones. The current one is a Wii, which is a lot of fun, I have to say. I like the simplicity of the controllers. I'm trying to think of what it is. PlayStation? I think we have a PlayStation. It has the yoke-like controller, and you hold it in both hands, and you've got buttons to push in both hands, and every finger has a button under it. There's joysticks and rocker switches. And I just don't have enough time to play enough to get proficient at those. And I really admire, unfortunately, the interface designer training that I had as part of my master's and doctoral programs. It really has ruined me for actually playing a game for playing the game. What I wind up doing is analyzing the user interface and the instructional design components. Games are really an interesting exercise for instructional designers. And most instructional designers, I have to say, ignore games because they're just, after all, games. That's in spite of the fact that there are a lot of people who are engaged in what's called serious gaming, which is the use of games for instructional purposes, a practice that I have actually taught, trying to teach teachers what games are and how they are different, for example, from simulations, why games are important for learning, all those things. So I have this problem when I play a video game. I get so tied up in analyzing what the game designers did in order to teach me how to play the game that I quite frequently don't learn how to play the game. It's a question of focus. The same thing happens when I start reading a book and tearing it apart. It's like, how did they do this? And how did this work? Well, I remember spending, in fact, I'm pretty sure I had the Missile Command cartridge. I think I even had the Asteroids cartridge for my old Atari. And as I say, I never was any good. But I did learn some basic tricks, some basic skills. I always thought strafing was such a cool thing to do. It required a level of hand-eye coordination that a geek like me really didn't have, but I tried. And it's odd to think of that as a lack of hand-eye coordination when in fact I'm a juggler. I've been known, I'm desperately out of practice now, but I can still juggle 3. I actually have some juggling pins in the trunk. I love to juggle. Juggling is so much fun, although it's not a video game. But there was something about Missile Command, the simplicity of it. Something about, what was the other one? Space Invaders? Is that right? Yeah, I think it was Space Invaders. Missile Command was interesting because of the trajectories, and you really did have to lead the targets the same way you did in Asteroids. Space Invaders was a little more, if you could get under it, you could kill it. And you pretty much had to be under it to kill it. I remember spending hours. I'm not exactly sure why, to tell you the truth. I think it goes back to the same thing that keeps us playing games today. In most of these, in fact, all of these games, there is, you finish this level, you go to the next level. And pretty much every game has this pattern where you master one level and you go on to the next, until eventually you run out of lives. I particularly like that. I think this leveling up thing is an important idea for us as people, certainly as a game designer, but also for educators. The idea of leveling up. The Khan Academy idea where you earn a badge for mastery, a badge that you can share with your friends. And that's such an interesting idea, that there's this thing, if you're not aware of it, there's this FERPA thing, where teachers in schools are prohibited from releasing grades to anyone who's not directly who doesn't have a direct interest in knowing the grade. So the student or the parent, but that's about it. In some cases, the state. So it would be illegal for the teacher to post the badge, but it would be okay for the student to do so. Because the student can tell anybody they want. It's their privacy to relinquish or not. It's sort of, as I said before, it's sort of like badges in Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts. So, but I think this leveling up thing, this mastery learning idea that really does go back to the early video games is really an important construct, because it really does demonstrate that regardless of how stupidly mindless the task, people will take a properly designed challenge very seriously. Video games. So I'm trying to think of some of the other ones that I used to play. Video games as compared to computer games. Now, I played a lot of computer games, and some of them probably have video game components. It was a shooter. Doom. Yes, Doom. I did enjoy Doom. My first-person shooter. I'm trying to think there was another first-person shooter. My younger daughter, loves first-person shooters. I'm not quite sure why, but she does. Lately, I play Lord of the Rings Online. I used to play quite a lot, which explains why I didn't get a lot done last year. But lately, I don't play quite so much. I do have a level 65 Guardian, me and Paulette Jackson. Hers is a hobbit, mine's a dwarf. Rugged little bugger. Not as rugged as he needs to be because he keeps dying lately. So I've got to work on that. Got to beef up his skill set. I have a hunter coming up. But this notion, I used to play MUDs, like Arctic Mud or Last Outpost. It's a text-based adventure similar to an adventure in the Colossal Cave or Zork, where your interaction is via text, there's no graphics involved. And I've often thought that these kinds of games would be great for kids who need reading remediation, because it's an opportunity for them to read and learn to read accurately and quickly, but not be subjected to mindless drill and practice with sentences. If you read well, your character survives. If you type well, your character survives. So there's a certain training aspect there. I also found it very useful when I made the shift from MUDs and muses to chat rooms, discussions where the text is flowing very quickly across the screen, and it's really up to you to sort it out and keep it straight, make meaning from what's flying across the screen. And I noticed that a lot of people had a lot of trouble keeping that straight when things are moving very quickly. And what I ultimately decided was that I didn't have any trouble with it because I was used to reading 8 or 9 channels of text information coming from my MUD, and that I played a lot of MUD. Right after we moved here in '92, I actually had a separate phone line put in so that we didn't have to tie up the telephone because I was dialing into the university. This is pre-broadband days. So a little bit of a ramble, but some of my memories about the earliest video games that I used to play, and a bit about the games that I'm playing now. I hope you found it useful, Dan, and thanks for including me in the call. Right now, I'm at the back gate, and tomorrow is another day.
Nathan Lowell is my favorite Audiobooks author. End of story. Early on, I heard Quarter Share, and to this day, it is still my favorite audiobook. Quarter Share is the first in a series of 6 books called The Trader's Tales, where his main character starts out as the lowest of the low, has to leave his home planet, goes onto a spaceship, and goes on an adventure and learns how to be a spacer. Over the course of 6 great books, I will warn you, if you start the first one, you'll be listening all the way till the end of the 6th one. It's just great stuff. And so, as you heard him talk about leveling up, it's kind of what his character does. A lot of people talk about how you always have to have conflict and lots of action, but Nathan Lowell is kind of a different breed. He's got everyman science fiction going on, you know. I just love it. It's different and it's great, and you'll love it too. So go to nathanlowell.org. I'm sure you've already listened to his great work if you are a podcast fiction fan at all. Yeah, so The Traitor's Tales, he's got some other great ones too. And I've been reading his new ebook. It's a very short novel, and it's called A Light in the Dark, and you can find it on Amazon right now. And, yeah, it's a really fun read. Has real nice short chapters, kind of just breeze through the text. It's fun to read. So, yeah, go check out Nathan Lowell's stuff. He is my favorite podcast novelist. Thank you for listening, and you will hear another guest blog post every Tuesday and Friday.